facial nerve, as we showed before, runs through bone. Yeah, it's sort of interesting in the little channels that it ends up going through. But it gets into that petrous part of the temporal bone, and it winds its way back. The motor part is going to exit at the stylomastoid foramen. Okay. You think back to osteology, when you look at the skull, so before mid-turn, that's the way it's going to go. Mastoid process up there, styloid process, the little hole in between that the facial nerve passes. Okay. Once it comes out, it moves forward and has several branches. One branch will go posteriorly, the others anteriorly. Okay. These motor branches are going to run through the parotid gland. It does not innervate the parotid gland. It does run through them. It'll run through it. That's actually important because glandular tissues are susceptible to creating cysts, little tumors, which can compress the nerves. And depending on what it compresses, it can paralyze muscles. Okay, so runs through. You've got 5 branches that go forward anteriorly, 1 branch behind. You can kind of mimic the innervation by using your hand. Something like this. May not be exact, but it gives you an idea. They are named for where they go. There's all kinds of variation on branching patterns. All kinds of variation. So they are named for where they go. So you've got one that goes toward the temporal region, called the temporal nerve, or temporal branch of the facial nerve. You've got one zygomatic. Are you working? Red light's on. Kind of been fading in and out. But the zygomatic will go toward the muscles, toward the zygomatic bone. You've got buccal or buccal, goes to the soft part of the cheek. Mandibular goes to the jaw. And then cervical to the neck. Right? Then you have the posterior one, which is called posterior auricular. It goes behind the ear. Right? A lot of mnemonics to remember this. The one I learned was, if you look at the first letter of each word I say, they referred back to one of these, the first letter of one of these branches. So, 2, okay, temporal zebras, bit my cat. 2 zebras bit my cat. If you want to include our posterior auricular, then it's 2 zebras bit my cat's paws. I invented the last part. I expect a nickel anytime you use it. Royalties. Okay, another mnemonic Dr. Lunsford likes. 2 Zanzibar by motor car. Another one out there, and hopefully this doesn't age up soon, but it might. Tell Ziggy Bob Marley called. Please. Okay. I gained a whole new respect for Bob Marley. I had a grandson that, you know, when he went, when he'd be crying and when he stopped, I put Bob Marley on. I just pulled him off. Like almost every time. Okay, so on this picture, they're going through the branches again. They don't have the posterior auricular here. But all these branches, those are motor branches. So they're going to all the motor muscles. How many motor muscles are there? Muscles of facial expression? I heard a lot. A lot works for me because if you Google it, Google. Yeah, a lot. Here you got 43. Here you got 30.
Yeah.
You've got 20. Did I miss 28? I know I've seen 60. So a lot works. The reason you get these variation in numbers, because there's variation in muscle. A lot of the facial muscles are small and they get incorporated in the connective tissue that holds into the face. And some of those very small and thin ones may be there or may not. They may blend with other bigger ones to where they're almost can be considered part of the bigger one. So that's where you get that variation in numbers. So I can't always say saying a lot works, but it works for me.
Will that be on the test?
Will it be on the test? Probably not.
Okay.
Because you can't get a distinct answer to it.
What if the answer's a lot?
Maybe. But then I have to come up with some, few,
None.
all of the above. Okay, so again, here's a picture showing the motor branches. You can see the muscles they go to. And again, the branching patterns are variable, so what you want to do is just look for where they go. Sometimes it might be difficult to tell whether or not something is, for instance, a zygomatic branch or a buccal branch. So sometimes you have to make a judgment call. Okay. This is a table that lists the branch and gives you the general area that they supply. And again, you might get a little bit of overlap to this, but it gives you a general idea. And sometimes general ideas is what you do. Any questions? Okay, I think I will stop here. I did mention that I put another set of slides up. We wouldn't have near enough time to go through it. But it's similar pictures. It goes into more detail about where the nuclei are, where the nerve is. inside the bone. Major branches. Right, so you want to look at those. There they are. I believe this came out of clinically oriented anatomy, and these are just flow charts of the parasympathetic. This one came out of a book called Matisse and Gardner. This also is basically a flow chart. It shows you changes in names that occur. You know, synapses don't occur out here, but we have name changes in fibers. It shows you what it does. Again, this is parasympathetic. Taste. This is a homunculus. I sort of mentioned this earlier. Lower body, feet is in the longitudinal fissure. Head and neck stuff tend to go toward the lateral fissure. So upside down person. Here's the taste pathway. We went over that with the other slides. This is more of a flow chart. Maybe you can see things better. As mentioned, the fiber bundle that goes to the thalamus. Some of that's not important for you now, but will be more important next quarter. Okay, a little sketch diagram of where everything's going. Okay, summary. I like summary diagrams. Fewer things I have to look at to get the message, the better I like it. Yeah, I think this one comes out of COA. The other one must have come out of a version of Gray's. And then one of the classic clinical disorders is Bell's palsy. Okay, and these are things that can happen if you have Bell's palsy. Partial paralysis of the face. The eye dries out. The eye dries out because you can't close your eye. Corner of the mouth droops. This might be a good thing though. The facial lines disappear. May be temporary. May last longer. I also think, you know, I find value in it can happen from a stroke. A lot of times it happens from an infection that affects the nerve. I find it interesting to look up people who have some of these diseases. You know, if I can see it, it makes it more real to me. So, you know, list of people with Bell's palsy. This is not a complete list. There are way more people than are on this list. But these are names you might recognize. So, Roseanne Barr, James Bond, Batman. So, I guess if you're into crime fighting, you have a chance of getting Bell's palsy.
There's no way it's gonna be done.
What?
Ain't no way she has it. Eventually they don't.
No, she does, but you can get steroids once in your face. Yeah.
Right. Are you hearing this? There's a discussion over whether, and sometimes it just goes away organically. It can come and go. So for your Buffy fans, actually, I guess it's an Angel fan. All right. Ooh, maybe that'd be a good question. Name a celebrity. Then I have to read a bunch of names.